To the Double Digit Hockey Show on ASTV Productions. We have a very great show lined up for you today. I got some special guests coming on as well. Gonna do something a little bit different than we normally do. We're going to go outside of the Western Canadian side of things and head out east and talk a little bit about the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, of course, part of the CHL three leagues. And so I went to some guys who I know on Twitter and thought I'd bring them on and they can help shed some light on a couple of things here. So I'd like to welcome on Adam and Jesse from the Wildcast Podcast for joining me on the show today. Welcome, fellas. How we doing?
Doing well.
Doing well.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks. We really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for coming on here. So the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League's probably had the most success over all of the CHL leagues so far into this season. Maybe you aren't familiar with the league at the moment. How does the league set up coming into the 2021 season? Like, how are they set up for league play and so far in your
They set up very differently. They divided. There's 18 teams, so they divided all the Quebec teams into their division and the 6 Maritime teams in their division. The Maritime teams were allowed to have a certain amount of fans. The Quebec teams got some help from the government, and they went into, I guess, protective environments, kind of like the East Division there in Saskatchewan. And they've just been playing different protective environments 4 at a time, all through Quebec, and you know they've had no fans, but they've had some success with it. And in the Maritimes, like you know, Jeremy and I have said a few times, we've been now split into three sets of division teams.
And how's that gone for the league? I know a little bit of a pause in the middle there with some COVID tests, things like that, but they're back at it. Are they on pace now to finish out this season, or are they going to have to do another pause out there?
So right now, actually the Quebec teams were supposed to be starting the playoffs this weekend, but they've had some positive cases, so that's been delayed for a little bit. Here in the Maritimes, we've still got another month before we do our playoffs. So right now here in Moncton, we're playing against Bathurst and St. John, and on the other side of things, Halifax, Charlottetown, and Cape Breton are doing their own thing. So we have something here called the Atlantic Bubble, which hasn't been in place since mid-November. So we haven't been able to go to Nova Scotia or go to PEI. So right now we're really playing the New Brunswick teams only, while Halifax and Cape Breton and Charlottetown are kind of doing their own thing.
It's a pretty interesting setup they have out there in the Maritimes because of the not traveling between the provinces out there. Mm-hmm. How has that gone for you guys? Has it an exciting thing to watch? Has it been a little bit boring to watch? How is that set up in your guys' mind working?
If you'd had us on the show about a month ago, we'd have been very excited to get back to hockey. I mean, when it first started, we haven't seen Halifax play here. We haven't seen Cape Breton at all. And so things kind of quickly went bad in Moncton. And so we were kind of red zone from, I think, November till March, something like that, December, March. So now we're just playing St. John and New Brunswick. And for people that followed last year, I mean, Moncton had set up to make a major run at the Memorial Cup. And so in the junior hockey cycle, we're now in the rebuild. So it's been a grind, and it's difficult to go to the rink night after night to watch the same two teams over and over again. But you just have to be excited for the guys we get to watch begin their junior career, and just kind of focus on those guys that are playing for Moncton and how they're growing game in and game out.
Let's talk about the Monken Wildcats for a little bit here. It is a rookie-filled roster. Obviously, you just mentioned there, tried to go to the Memorial Cup. Unfortunately, Denau and this COVID thing like a little bit of a kibosh in there. They sell off some big names from that team, and now you're in the rebuild thing. So how is the rebuild going for Monken?
Slow.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. A lot of rookies, free agents out of Ontario. So right now we in some injury trouble. We've got our 3 top forwards are out injured. We've got players making their Q debuts that I never thought would ever play a game in the league. So it's difficult. But the team's still competing. So that's the main thing. We can't ask for more than that. But yeah, we're losing games, but it's the work ethic is there.
I mean, you look at our defensemen, we've got 7 defensemen, and only 2 of them have played more than 10 games in the queue. We got one that's injured right now. He played 3, I think, last year. So when you've got a defense core with one 20-year-old, one 18-year-old, and those are your veterans, it's pretty tough night after night. But, I mean, in selling off those assets, I mean, we traded Jordan Spence at the deadline, and we got arguably, Jeremy's more of a draft guy than I am, but arguably one of the best goalie prospects since Marc-Andre Fleury in Quebec as part of that deal. So, and he's played, I think, 3 games in a year because he didn't play a midget. So he's getting better every game, and he's you can see the potential there for sure.
Two big moves that the Moncton mentioned, the Spence one there. The other one is the Jacob Pelche trade. 2 trades seem to have set Moncton up for the future going forward. But is there more to it than just those 2 trades that have put Moncton in a good position? A lot of work to be done for the Wildcats.
That's your bulk. Like, that's your serious returns that we've got. But we traded a defenseman, Sean Stewart, for 3 assets. Was it 3 assets?
Yeah, I think so.
And to me, that's 1 asset more than I would have expected. So we can't complain about how the job our general manager is doing. He's doing a superb job. That Pelche trade, he turned Pelche into 8 assets. So you can't really complain about that. We're ecstatic. We got some really good players. The Spence deal too. We've got first round picks in 2021, 2023, and some other prospects and picks. So things are good. The future's really bright.
And you know, in terms of this rookie rebuild, 6 players from this past draft have made their debut this year. I think 5 from the draft before that. And, you know, I moved here 3 years ago, so I don't really know much of the drafting before that. Jeremy's been a lifelong fan. So, you know, the prospect pool was quite small, even with picks. So you've just seen the job that our GM, Richie Thibault, has done in drafting properly, finding the right players that, you know, can step into a lineup. And we're on a pace. I mean, it's a new week. It's a new player coming in. But, you know, he's setting us up well that with the assets that he got for Pelche and Spence, that, you know, the future's bright, and we know that he's going to turn those players and make the right picks to move this team forward where it wants to go.
Interesting. I ask those questions because I'm genuinely interested in the other side of things. Being a left hurricane guy in the Western Hockey League here, I just went through a span where we saw the opposite. We emptied the tank to bring guys in to have a few runs in our playoff run, and now it's interested to see how the other side of things go because, well, the Hurricanes are just about to header themselves, so it should be interesting to see the turnover there. So we talked about Jacob Pelche and that trade. Now, he's moved on to the Val d'Or, and he seems to continue to grow and to play. I have a lot of Flame followers that listen to this show, so let's talk about Jacob Pelche a little bit and what you guys witnessed firsthand from the time he entered the queue until he was traded. Talk a little bit about Jacob Pelche.
He's going to be the hardest working player every night, every shift. I'm a Flames fan myself, so I can say this. The Flames won't win anything until Jacob Pelche is in the lineup. He's just that type of player. He's the Daryl Sutter player. You won't find a better fit in that lineup with him behind the bench.
Yeah, I'm not a Flames fan. I'm an Oilers fan. I was absolutely crushed when he was selected by Calgary. But, I mean, you look at Pelche, he does everything you want, whether it's forecheck, back check, penalty kill, power play. I mean, Valdor traded for him, and he was named captain before he stepped on the ice. It just shows the leadership. I mean, Jacob Pelche could have been captain last year. I mean, he's from the time he was drafted, he just wants to win, and he's going to put the effort into to carry his team to where he wants it to go. And you know, I'm happy for him, not so much for the sweater he's eventually going to put on night in and night out in that barn.
I think I'm going to have to buy a Pelche jersey just to have you back on the podcast now for next time. So,
if I had to,
where he's going, we saw a bit of that at the juniors and what.
Yeah. If I had to buy a Flames one, it's going to be a Pelche one. If I have to.
Yeah, for sure. So at the World Juniors, we saw everything that you guys just talked about. We saw that on the ice at the World Junior Hockey Championships. Obviously, that type of play carries forward to his junior career in Val-d'Or. Is between him and Justin Robidas, they have that team clicking. Are they the team to beat in the Q this year if there was a traditional playoff?
I don't think there's going to be...
Yeah.
There's not a team that comes close to them.
No.
It's Charlottetown, maybe. But Val-d'Or on paper is just an absolute juggernaut. Pelche, Legare, Poulin, Spence, Robidas,
Jonathan Lemieux in net.
Yeah, they are fully loaded. This is your Cadillac, fully loaded. You won't get a better team on paper. The funny part is the Q rules going into the playoffs. If one player tests positive or a member of the coaching staff tests positive, you are eliminated. So you got to think, a team like Val-d'Or, they could win the first game 10-1. A player tests positive going into game 2, they're done. So it's, keep your team away from the public as much as possible.
It's very much
that sounds like
the
doing
same.
the Red Deer Rebel thing and hosing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Hosing
Yeah,
the guys
it's,
right at the rink the Rebels are doing here in the Western Hockey League. Yeah.
Yeah, they've got so much talent. You forget Maxim Chaykovich, who's a Tampa Bay prospect. But I mean, Jeremy says they're the Cadillac of the team. They basically are what Moncton was last year. They loaded up for everything. Who knows what that gets them? The only difference, Moncton went for a very established goaltender in Olivier Rodrigue. Val-d'Or went for Jonathan Lemieux, who may not be on a lot of radars, but he's dynamic goaltender. I mean, he's unbelievable this year. So yeah, they are poised. I mean, Charlottetown will probably get there, but I don't know if they can hang with them in a 7-game series.
I give Val-d'Or a lot of credit for continuing to build a team headed towards the goals of winning the Q and possibly Memorial Cup, even in the middle of a COVID season. It'll be disappointing for them if they get to do any of that. Is there a playoff picture in the Q at the moment, or are they still holding off a little bit here and trying to wait out a little bit more?
So there is a playoff picture, I guess. So, like Jeremy said, I mean, the Quebec teams were going to start Thursday, and the Maritime Division was going to start in about a month or so, just because we hadn't played for so long. So, like I said early in the show, they divided the divisions into 3 divisions of 6, and there's the top 2 teams from the 2 Quebec divisions. They get a bye. So right now you've got Drummondville and Sherbrooke in a best of 5, Gatineau, Rouyn-Noranda in a best of 5, Victoria, Baie-Comeau in a best of 5, Quebec, Rimouski in a best of 5, and then they go on to play their division winners. Val-d'Or had the bye, Blainville had the bye, Chicoutimi had the bye, and Shawinigan had the bye. Now when you go to the Maritime Division, it gets a little bit more convoluted. There's 6 teams. The top 3 teams will get a bye. So right now that's Charlottetown, Bathurst, and St. John. The 4, 5, and 6, they're going to play 1-game knockout. So the 5 seed will host the 6 seed. So right now that's Moncton will host Cape Breton. Halifax is a 4 seed. We'll wait to play that winner. So being Moncton fans, we're going to assume we're going to beat Cape Breton. We would play Halifax in the 4-5 matchup. Again, we're going to be homers. We're going to assume we're going to beat Halifax. We'd end up playing the number 1 team. Your reward after that, you get to play Charlottetown in a, I'm going to assume best of 3 or best of 5 series. And then Bathurst and St. John will play. And each division winner that comes out of the East, West, and Maritime, they're going to go into, I guess, a double round knockout style round robin. And then the best 2 teams out of that round robin knockout will compete for the President Cup. It's convoluted.
That's an interesting scenario, but hey, if it works, right? It's interesting. I haven't heard the full picture. I didn't know it was that convoluted. I knew it was different. The Western Hockey League has yet to have a playoff put together, and the OHL, who knows what they're doing. So it'll be interesting to see if the Q can pull this off. If they do, then all the credit to them. So, is there a team on the outside? We talked about Val-d'Or. We talked about Charlottetown. Those seem to be the top teams, the teams to beat. Is there a team on the outside? Let's just say, no, this is a regular playoff. Is there a team outside of those 2 that you could see sneaking up and taking the championship?
I mean, I would give Blainville credit. Blainville, Boisbriand, Armada, probably one of the better names in the CHL. St. John, maybe, but they're so inconsistent. You just never know what to expect when St. John comes to town. Those are maybe the only 2 teams that I might put in the same conversation, but it's not even close.
Yeah, I think for me, I would probably put Shawinigan, the Cataract, in there. Maverick Bork, who was just drafted by Dallas, is pretty dynamic. Vasily Ponomarov. They acquired Justin Bergeron for Rwanda, who was a valuable asset at the deadline. I think if Val-d'Or hadn't been in on Spence, they definitely would have been on Justin Bergeron. The only issue I have with Shawinigan, and again, none of these teams are touching Val-d'Or. None of these teams might not touch Charlottetown the way they're going. But if I had a question mark about Shawinigan, it would be in goal with Anton Colomb and a guy we know here, Charles-Antoine Lavallee. So that would be. But again, none of these teams that we talk about are touching Val-d'Or. It's just Val-d'Or, Shawinigan, or Val-d'Or, Charlottetown. That's ramping up to be your final.
Interesting. It's hard to pick a dark horse team then, it sounds like. So, interesting. We talked a little bit about Jacob Pelche, but he's not the only Flame draft pick I wanted to mention in this chat today. Jeremy, Mr. Poirier, I can't even his name, I apologize. Poirier of the Sea Dogs seems to be having himself a really good season. What can you tell Flame fans about Poirier?
I would say don't get excited. I'm not a big fan about him. I think he's highly overrated. When I saw the Flames pick him, I wasn't happy. I'll be bluntly honest when I say that. There were better players available at the time. I don't see him having a NHL career. He's going to be an AHL lifer. That's just my opinion. So don't get excited. Don't go buy a Poirier jersey. You're wasting your money.
Now, for his thoughts on Poirier, quickly ask him about the other Flames draft pick with the Sea Dogs and Ryan Francis. Ryan Francis has been everything as advertised. He was dealt at the deadline as a kind of a future pick. Like, he's not this year as much for St. John as he is next year. But, I mean, Ryan Francis, if you want to get Jeremy going on that guy, that's a player that, again, isn't a Jacob Pelche type player, but he's a, I don't know, fourth line, can make some splash plays if he was to make it to the Flames, I would guess.
Yeah. Jeremy Poirier's overrated. Ryan Francis is underrated. So to me, Ryan Francis, I think he's got a Andrew Mangiapane upside. So he's someone that I think could sneak into a second or third line role with the Flames. You know, he's not ready next year. He's 5 years away maybe. But, you know, by the time he's 22, 23, I see him as like a third liner with the Flames.
I want to jump on you guys there when you were going there, but that was my next question, so I'm glad you took it and ran with it. I couldn't find any good Oiler draft picks in the queue, so I had to ask all of the Flame ones in the queue.
I can't find him either, if I'm being honest with you.
Interesting. Yeah, the Oilers seem to not want to draft from that end of the country, which is weird. So, they did pick one guy, and we're gonna go away from the current guys and go to some guys who have graduated from the queue now. There is one guy, you hit it, that has graduated from the queue. The Oiler fans seem to be high on. Should they be high on Raphael Lavoie, or should they hold off a little bit and not get as excited?
Okay, I'm gonna eat my words a little bit. When he came out, there was a lot of excitement around him from Oilers fans, and I mean, when he was in Halifax, he was really good in their Memorial Cup year, and he's a big body. His foot speed wasn't there for me. He could put the puck in the net. He could score. A lot of Oiler fans were excited. I mean, this was going to be Connor's winger. Give him a few years. Big body. And I said, stop it. He's underwhelmed me from day one. It had nothing to do with Halifax. Moncton, I'm a Moncton fan first, but I understand hockey, and I have an opinion. I don't just look at the numbers, which a lot of people in the West just kind of look at numbers, and it's not their fault. I do it with Western prospects like Dylan Gunther, for instance. You just kind of look at his numbers because you don't watch the games. Since Lavoie's gone to the Swedish Elite League or the second, I can't remember which league he's in, he's proven that he can play against men, and he's proven that he can play at a pretty good level. He's in the AHL right now, so he's making me eat my words a little bit that he was going to, like Jeremy said, underwhelm for me. So he doesn't overwhelm, he doesn't underwhelm, he's just whelmed. And if he can continue to get better with his foot speed, he can score. But, eventually down the road, fans can probably look for Lavoie. He's not McJesus' winger. He's probably not even Draisaitl's winger. I see him as a fourth line, top AHL line guy that gets called up every now and then.
Yeah, I'm with Adam.
Interesting. That's quite the damper of expectations from the draft year.
Well, yeah, it's he had a heck of a playoff. I mean, his playoff run against us. I mean, they swept us in 4, and I think he had 9 goals and 15 points. Well, 6 of those goals were empty net goals, and yeah, you got to be on the ice to score them. He did, but I mean, he was always just. For a big body, he didn't play like a big body player in the queue. And he's kind of making me eat my words from draft night. He's showing that he can play with men.
Just call him Butter because he's soft.
Interesting. Funny. All right, there's one other guy I want to hit on the same type of vicinity. Now, he was a late-round draft pick by the Flames. He's played alongside some really good hockey players. He alongside one Mr. Alexis Lafreniere. Dimitri Zagney has gotten a lot of run in the Calgary media. Is it fair to suggest that this guy could be a player, or is he one of those guys that's just destined to have a really good AHL career for you?
Yeah, to me, that's a tough one.
I think he's kind of like Lavoie. Like, he can be a top AHLer, but he can make some splash in Calgary if he's given the opportunity for a little while.
He's got skill. He's got speed. I don't think he's an NHLer, though. I think, to me, he's AHL first line. But that's it. I don't see it in any more than that.
That's fair. The reason I asked about these two guys is because of the fanfare they've both gotten, and how if they can get their skill set to translate level, they might have success but also to help us temper our expectations on some guys as well.
Yeah.
What are your guys' confidence levels in a Memorial Cup actually happening at the end of the season?
0.
Absolutely none.
I'm right there with you.
I mean, Ontario just did a 28-day lockdown. We're already into April. I mean, we talked about it on our show. A month ago, I think. You put the end of the regular season in May, playoffs in June, finishing the playoffs in July, August, September, early September draft, November 1st start of a regular season. I don't know how much longer you can wait on the Ontario Hockey League. I was hoping they were going to get something, even if it was the what the WHL is doing, but I just zero confidence for me. I don't even know what the WHL is doing for playoffs, if they've even established anything. So I can't see a Memorial Cup, sadly, for the second year in a row.
The OHL can't even decide if they want body check
Yeah,
this season.
Yeah, they've locked down Ontario again a little bit too, which is a little concerning. As for the WHL, they haven't announced a playoff format yet. They have their hubs in their separate provinces playing, but nothing official beyond the 24-game regular season. They actually just move some dates around in the BC division, so it's getting a little bit scary out in BC with the Vancouver Canucks. We saw that situation with COVID. They're concerned about the junior teams in the same area as well, so it's very scary. I'm with you guys. It's unfortunate. It'll be 2 years in a row now with no Memorial Cup, essentially, so hopefully we can get back to normal. We're up against time for you guys, but I don't want to let you go without getting some thoughts from your side of. I get a lot of guests from Western Canada and talking about the Oilers and the Flames and how good they're going to be. And I know you said that you're Flames and Oilers fans, but from out east, what is the talk around your guys' area with Montreal and how successful they can be? And even though,
one of the guys that used to host the show with us, Chris Dobson, huge Montreal fan. I mean, they go as far as Carey Price takes them. He's shown that if he's all worldly, they can beat anyone in the North Division. But if he's not quite there, Jake Allen is the most popular guy in all of Montreal. So I think the Eric Stahl move was a smart move to give him depth down the middle. And it's just, they're hanging in because of the overtime point, if we're being frank. But I think they can, Carey Price showed in the bubble last year when he gets hot, this team who no one thought would do anything. I mean, they can shock some people, and they have a better team now than they did last year. So it's Carey Price, and if he's great, that team can be outstanding.
does Montreal have what it takes? Let's set it up right now that they would play Toronto in round one. Do they have what it takes to beat Toronto?
It depends. If Frederick Anderson is healthy, I think the Leafs will take him. They'll finally get to that second round of the playoffs for the first time in God knows when. Overrated group of overpaid nice people. But honestly, I don't watch a lot of Montreal and Toronto, so I couldn't even tell you who would win that series. I would just base my decision on paper, and that would be Toronto.
I will go the other way. I think absolutely Montreal can beat Toronto. Toronto, their whole season really banks on if they can get out of the first round. I mean, they, like Jeremy said, they haven't been out of the first round in God knows how long. They already have questions on Frederick Anderson. Can he be the guy? What Carey Price can do. And I think if there's a team that up and down the lineup can play with and frustrate Toronto, it would be Montreal. And, Weber on Matthews for 7 games, beating him up. I absolutely think Montreal. I don't think it'll be quick, but I think Montreal could defeat them for sure.
The the Weber versus Matthews things would be very interesting to watch over a 7-game series. I'll put you both on the spot here then. Who wins the North Division?
Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg's going to make some moves, and they're going to They're going to win it. I think they're really good. I think Connor Hellebuyck's one of the best goalies in the league right now. I think they're one defenseman away from getting there.
Yeah, I'm pre-trade deadline. I absolutely think Winnipeg can win the division. Post-deadline, if Mike Smith can stay on the run he's on, and the Oilers can add a defenseman, add a third line winger, I think a good friend of ours, Danny LeBlanc, retweeted an article or a thing from Sportsnet where Elliot Friedman was talking about Conor Garland's trade value. That's a player that if Edmonton grabbed to play up and down that lineup, and Mike Smith stays as hot as he stayed, which not a lot of people saw coming, including myself, I think it's Edmonton and Winnipeg in a 7-game series. To get out of that, I think they actually play in the first round, which is tragic, but I think it'd be between them, and it'd come down to Hellebuyck versus Smith for 7 games. And we all know what Connor can do when he wants to take over a series, so it'd be interesting to see Scheifele, Connor, and the 2 goalies. So I'll stay with my homer pick. I think if Mike Smith can stay on that level, I see Edmonton coming out of the North Division.
I don't think Mike Smith saw this level of compete from Mike Smith, so that's interesting. I'm glad that neither of you as well picked Toronto. So
no, I lived in Alberta, so I know Toronto.
I really like what Paul Maurice. Fair enough. Now I'm going to pick with the Winnipeg as well. I'll admit it. When I did my pre-season predictions, I had Winnipeg out of the playoffs. Well, I've eaten my words there, and they proved me wrong, and good on them. So now I'm going to go with them, pick them. I think what Paul Maurice has done with that group is tremendous, especially on the back end. They go out and they add one of those rumored defensemen to that back end, and they can be very hard depending who they play in the round of the playoffs. Yep. Fellas, I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you allowing me to bump you a week because I was supposed to have you last week, and I appreciate all you in the QMJHL. Good rest of the season out there. I'll check back in again come playoff time to see how things are going.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having us. And if anyone wants to follow us, we drop our shows weekly on Spotify. We're just trying to get on YouTube, so you can find us on YouTube. And our shows usually drop on Wednesdays. So again, thanks for having us on. We really appreciate it. And anytime you need some Q coverage, we're here for you.
I appreciate it, guys. And I'll make sure that all the listeners out there as well get Twitter handles as well for the show, and that they'll know where to find you guys at. Appreciate your time today. We're going to take a quick break here on the Double Digit Hockey Podcast. When we're back, I will continue along the hockey talk. I will talk about the Western Hockey League coming up here and talk about Mr. Conor Bedard of the Cats. Right back on the Double Digit Hockey Podcast. Hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate the coming on the show.
No worries. Was it as glitchy on your end as it was here? Or was it smooth?
All right, guys. Well, it is a little bit glitchy, a little bit of a delay, but I can see what I can do to clean that up there. So,
no worries.
I'm not sure what the issue was today.
It's the Rogers internet.
Hey, frick off, man. That's my employer you're talking about.
All right, man. Thanks for everything. I appreciate you having us on.
Awesome. I'll catch up with you guys on Twitter. Yeah, you bet. Thanks, guys. And we are back on the Double Digit Hockey Show Wildcast Podcast. We'll tweet out some links there to their stuff. You can catch their show, and it was awesome to talk about the Quebec Major Hockey Junior League. For once on the show, we did a lot of the stuff out west here. It's nice to get a view from the other side of the country and how that's going there. I'm really intrigued by their playoff scenario that they have rolled out. So it'll be interesting to see how things go the rest of the way for them. Time to continue on with the junior hockey chat. Let's talk a little bit about the WHL, a little bit about the news and notes that I've witnessed over the last, let's call it 2 weeks here, because there's a few things going on here. We'll start out in Regina there, where they're having their East Division bubble going. It's going very well for those teams out there. The action's really good. The teams are really close, competitive. But one guy is definitely catching the eye of everyone across the Western Hockey League and junior hockey, and even as high as the entire hockey world. Conor Mcgard named this week as the player of the week across the Western Hockey League. Conor Bedard had 9 points in the 4 games over the last week. He now is in the league lead with 22 points in 12 games. Oh, by the way, he's only 15 years old. Unbelievable the season that Conor Bedard has put together as a rookie in the Western Hockey League. Really like the game that he's put together, and he's doing it with more than just shooting the puck. He has, if you look at him off the puck, he seems to have a lot of hockey IQ away from the puck as much as he has with the puck. Despite Bedard's brilliance, though, the Pats are just 4-6-2 on the season as they continue their rebuild. This bubble is going to be really good for that young team. They're going to allow them to get closer together. And come any sort of playoffs, if there is any, or into next season, I expect Regina to be an absolute force. It's Conor Bedard's world right now in the Western Hockey League. The rest of us are just along for the ride. He seems to be doing what he wants at will, and he seems to be having the confidence to be able to bring his teammates along for the ride. It's not hard to see why he was given the exceptional status to play in the Western Hockey League, and it's not hard to see why he's so touted. And if this progresses, we're looking at the next generational superstar going forward. So Conor Bedard leading the league at 15 years old with 22 points in 12 games. Unbelievable. Regina finds themselves 9 points back in that bubble, as we mentioned, back of Brandon and Saskatoon, who are tied with the 19 points each. Those two teams seem to be the teams to beat out in the East Division. They both got off to outstanding starts. They've both been able to find the goaltending that they need. Brandon's goaltender was named goaltender of the week for the Western Hockey League. So congratulations to him. Saskatoon seems to have been a little bit of a surprise for me. I wasn't sure how good that team was going to go, but they've lived up to what is on the paper. On the back of their hockey cards, they seem to have shown up and have played well. So it's a nice race, tight race at the top of that division between Brandon and Saskatoon. We'll see how those two teams stack up together as they play very soon. Onto the Central Division, it seems to be the Edmonton Oil Kings running away with things. One thing we've noticed about Edmonton is just drafted Jake Neighbors by the St. Louis Blues, and pending NHL eligible draft prospect Dylan Guenther are just running away with things. They sit just behind Conor Bedard in league scoring with 21 points for Neighbors, 20 for Dylan Guenther. He has 10 goals to only the 5 of Jake Neighbors, showing that the offense is not just one guy in Edmonton, and they seem to have taken the Central Division by storm. The other end of that division, you see the Lethbridge Hurricanes and the Red Deer Rebels, both of who are normally competitive hockey clubs going in the right direction, but both have been a little bit held back a bit by the way that the season rolled out with COVID, losing some key players to the pro levels and having a lot of younger kids playing in the lineup. So it'll be interesting to see the development of those teams while the other teams continue to battle and take over the top spots. We talk about all these hot starts, but no start in this WHL season was better or has been better than that of the Everett Silvertips goaltender, Dustin Wolf. The Calgary Flames 7th round draft pick is off to a tremendous, almost perfect start to the Western Hockey League season. The Silvertips sit at 7-1 on the season to top the U.S. division. They are up 4 points on both Portland and Seattle, who sit in second. Wolf himself is 6-1 in those games. He's played all but one game. He has 3 shutouts in those 7 starts. And he's only allowed, this is the outstanding stat, in those 7 starts, he's only allowed 5 goals. That's outstanding. That's tremendous. I don't know anyone who would have predicted that going into the season. So that allows him for a .71 goals against average, and he has a .975 save percentage. Dustin Wolf is running that U.S. division right now. He may single-handedly win things for Everett Silvertips. If there was a traditional playoff this year, right now it would be hard to bet against the Silvertips, who seem to be running away with things. The divisional races are heating up everywhere except for BC. BC released today a little bit of a schedule change with their setup. I'm just going to pull up the actual release here so I have it. BC is off to a slower start. They were the last of the divisions to get going. They have to do some rescheduling, so they are on pause at the moment. So there'll be no games played in the hub centers, Kamloops and Kelowna until the 13th, Tuesday the 13th of April. So that's re-recording this about a week away from that. They were supposed to play this weekend. Those games got pushed back a little bit. So unfortunate for the BC division. There is a bright spot in the D division, and that's the 4-0 perfect record of the Kamloops Blazers. They have got off to a nice start. They seem to have picked up where they left off last season. Logan Stankoven is leading the team with 8 points. He's NHL draft eligible this season, showing why he should make a case to be a draft selection in the draft coming up. So very interested to see how that BC division continues to go. Obviously, there's growing concerns in the province of British Columbia with COVID and some variants. We saw what's happened to the Vancouver Canucks in the National Hockey League, and they're definitely taking their time to make sure that the Western Hockey League is safe and those players are safe. So that's the news and notes from I have around the Western Hockey League. I want to make time here for a little bit of NHL talk to end the show. And I wanted to get through this because before our next show, we're going to have the NHL trade deadline. So I'm going to take a spin around the North Division here of the National Hockey League and kind of key in a little bit, not a lot of in-depth stuff based on the time I have left here, but talk about each of the Canadian teams in the North Division and what I see them doing heading into and around the trade deadline. We are about a week away from the NHL trade deadline. April 12th is the trade deadline in the National Hockey League. And so we should see a ton of movement this week. There is still the 7-day quarantine. If a player wants to bring someone from south of the border into Canada, they have that 7-day quarantine still. So you probably would see moves quicker than later. So I keep my eyes out to the ground. So let's start out in the West. We talked about Vancouver, their COVID situation. It's not helping matters out in Vancouver at all that they sit in low in the division as well. They sit in second last in the division. They've had a season to almost forget for Vancouver, and this trade deadline is secondary to what they're dealing with now in the illnesses and the sicknesses, but we are going to go ahead and talk about it anyways. Vancouver Canucks, if they look at things, probably will be selling at the trade deadline. They have some UFAs, Sutter, VC, Travis Boyd, who could be on the move and could be a good rental player elsewhere in the league. The big question around Vancouver right now is what to do with Alex Edler. Does he stay in Vancouver or do they try to move him out? The preference from what we've been reading and hearing from NHL insiders is that Edler would like to move on. Edler would not like to move on. He'd like to stay in Vancouver and stay in the area. If it was up to him, he'd probably sign an extension for the Canucks and continue to play on their blue line. So that's the situation in Vancouver that I will be watching. It's what do they do with Alex Edler and a couple of the other guys. There's a guy in their minors Utica system, Sven Berchi, that I wonder if anyone takes a look at for a depth role. The contract of Sven Berchi isn't kind, but I wonder if they can move him along and give him an opportunity to play. Let's come out to Alberta and talk about the Edmonton Oilers. They're definitely adding. This is a team who sees themselves as the division leaders. They're right there in the race. They're not that far behind Toronto. Toronto seems to be their kryptonite, and so they're looking to do something that'll probably propel them to be able to compete with the Maple Leafs a little bit more. This team could use a top 6 left winger, a top 6 scorer. I wonder if they go after a guy like a Connor Garland, mentioned earlier in the show by my guests. He's a good fit there. I wonder if they go ahead and they target other wingers of that ilk to help propel their forward group. And I wonder if they go out and they add another defenseman to this group. The young kids have been okay, struggled at times, but I wonder if they go out and they add that one more veteran presence on a bargain deal that allow them to push people maybe a little bit and slot them a little bit better. Edmonton probably is adding at the deadline. I'd be shocked if they don't bring in another forward. The Winnipeg Jets are definitely adding, and I'm not going out on a limb saying that they're going to add a defenseman on this one. It's been very widely speculated. I'd be shocked if the Winnipeg Jets do not add a defenseman. Matthias Ekholm and Dennis and Savard have been rumored to be those targets. I wonder how hard they look at Ekholm. I wonder now with Nashville's resurgent if Ekholm is still on the market as much as he was a couple of weeks ago. And I definitely think Savard is a good fit in Winnipeg. I wonder if they go back to the Columbus Blue Jackets and hit up that well again and bring in another Blue Jacket player. Winnipeg probably adding a D-man. Ottawa Senators are going to stand pat in my books. It's all about the future for them. Heading into the trade deadline, they could get some things for a few different guys, but I wonder how many moves they're actually going to make. And there's 2 names out there that I'm going to put a watch on for the Ottawa Senators. If they can get an offer for Anisimov or Colburn, I wonder if they move ahead with those guys. We know that Braden Colburn won the Stanley Cup last year with the Bolts. I wonder if a team brings in his experience to help their push to the playoffs. A team like Toronto would be in that mindset for me. The Maple Leafs, though, I don't know how much they're going to be able to throw around and trade. They should add everything to help this team go forward. Right now, their group is built to win. Add some things to it to bolster the outsides of that roster. I wonder if a guy like Colburn or Anisimov, for that matter, can fit in that mindset of Toronto, or if they're going to go bigger game fishing, but that would be a bigger roster shakeup. We have to keep in mind the salary cap as well is a problem for most of these teams trying to add, so they've got to be creative with things, which is why I bring up the name of Braden Colburn. I wonder if that's an easier contract to get moved in a deal there. So Montreal, I think, is both an add and subtract type team. Trade both directions because they're in this race, but are they in this race good enough to win? They look like they're going to be that 4th team. They look like they're going to make the playoffs in that 4th spot, and they're going to have to face one of those 3 big teams of Toronto, Winnipeg, or Edmonton with those high-flying offenses. Will they go out and bolster that back end to try and offset that, or can they add a scorer to help up front? Right now, Montreal, we all know, will only go as far as Carey Price carries them. I wonder what they're going to do with Thomas, who is a pending UFA. That's a name I'm going to keep an eye on. I know they like him there, but if they can move him along and get assets for him, I wonder if they do so, because that is a guy who could fetch them a pretty decent return at the moment. Philip Denau is one of their big centers. Now with Stahl there, he's pushed down the lineup a little bit more into more of a comfort role. He is, though, a UFA, so that's definitely another name to watch. I'm pretty sure they're probably going to keep him and try to sign him, though. I saved Calgary for last because it's I could go on a bit of a rant about the Flames. So I wanted to save it for last so I would be up against time, so I couldn't go on my rant. We'll talk about that in another show. The Flames definitely should be holding a fire sale, though. If it's not tied down, then sell it. They have a lot of pending UFAs that can move that they should be able to get some looks at, and they've got a couple of younger guys that could make some headways. Young guys of Bennett and David Riddick could be very useful pieces to a playoff-bound team. We all know what Sam Bennett can do in the playoffs. I wonder if a guy like Derek Ryan gets looked at. He could be a good, useful depth piece for a caliber team. I see a team like a Boston or a Washington acquiring a guy like him. And then they got a big list of UFAs. The Ritchie, Nordstrom, Simone, Levo, Nesterov, Stone grouping are all depth guys, but guys that teams could go pick up for cheap. it would allow them to have that depth that they need going into the playoffs. So NHL trade deadline just under a week away now. It'll be interesting to see what teams or who makes moves. Lots of news and notes from around the league coming for sure. Next week on the show, we're going to take a bigger look at the Calgary Flames and the Vancouver Canucks, both very disappointing seasons, both coming off of expectations that they were supposed to be better than they are. So we're going to look towards their offseason. What do we see them doing next? And a little bit of a wrinkle in things with the expansion draft and who to move. We also take a look at possible draft choices for them. We're also going to take a look at the other division teams in the Northern Division in the playoff picture. Who's going to play who should play who? Does anyone match up better against anybody? It's now a race for the top seed. Who is it going to be? Jets, Leafs, or the Oilers? All that's going to be next week on the Double Digit Hockey Show. If you missed anything of the show, go ahead and make sure you check out the YouTube page for the link, and I'll tweet out some links for it as well, and you can replay the things. I appreciate the guys from the Wildcast Podcast for joining me and talking about the Q in the first segment of the day. It was very awesome to talk about the Western Hockey League and Conor Mcgard here in the second segment. Any other questions, news, and notes, go ahead and hit me up on social media at VintageJohnny84 or at the show Double Digit Hockey on Twitter. Thanks so much. This has been another edition of the Double Digit Hockey Podcast. Thanks for joining me. I am John Easthoe.